when I was about 13, this young family, right? Husband, wife, and baby child. I don't know what was up with this, and I don't really recall 100%, but they moved into what was my bedroom. It was like supposed to be my bedroom and was the room that was my bedroom. And they didn't live with us for all that long, you know, but I think it was some months. A whole lot of weird shit went down for them in that room. One of the things was that she said she was on the bed in the room. They were all in there, you know, her husband and the baby, and they were all in there, but she was on the bed and her ankle was like dangling over the side of the bed. And she said that she felt a hand wrap around her ankle. And, you know, her husband was not in arm's length reach of her. Like, he was not close enough for it to have been him. And she said it was just like a cold, not warm hand had grabbed her ankle. She felt all the fingers. She explained it to me, how it felt. They were pretty weirded out in general because the baby would like stare up at the light on the ceiling in my bedroom. This is one of the orb photo shoots that we were doing back in the day that I'll explain to you when we get around to the time frame that this was being done in. But right up here was this big square light. It was the only light in the room. It was like fluorescent lights. This is obviously the board where the windows were covered up. And yeah, so this is my bedroom ceiling and that's the light. And they said that the baby would just stare up at this like light, this general area, and he would like scream and cry. And they said one time, dude, because this was a pretty small baby, like he wasn't really supposed to be like, he certainly wasn't like crawling around and shit, I don't think, you know. They said he fell off the couch one night and that they didn't feel like it made any sense that he had fallen off the couch, because I remember how they had him set up to sleep in there. They made this like barricade of blankets in this sort of like circular shape. Like they made this like barricade around to sort of fabricate a bed for him on the couch. And it was all pretty sturdy. I remember looking at it and thinking, well, that does look sufficient. You know, that looks fine. You know what I mean? They didn't have a bed for him, but that was where he slept, and that's how they made it, you know, safe for him. And dude, they said that one night he fell off of it. And I remember them pretty much wanting to leave, you know, at that point. And I would have too. While they were sleeping in my bedroom, I was sleeping in the front room. I was sleeping on the front room on that couch. From where I was laying on the couch, I could see the fireplace. The part that I was looking at would have been the right side of it, over to that side. I'm laying there one night and it's dark, but it's not completely dark because you got to remember the glass front doors of the front entrance and stuff, that let light in. The windows that were in the front room let light in. I'm laying there on the couch looking toward the fireplace, man, and I shit you not. Okay, here's the fireplace, right? And this head, this face peeks around it, okay? And yeah, it's dark, but I get the gist that they were staring at me, okay? Peeks around the fireplace and looks at me. Was that a stain on the fabric of space-time? A ghost? Well, you know, can ghosts interact? I was always under the impression that a stain on the fabric of space-time is not interactive. So anything that seems like it could be interactive out of a stain on the fabric of space-time must be a coincidence, right? That when this stain on the fabric of space-time took place, they just happened to be, you know, staring in the direction that you just happened to be on your timeline, on your reality, in your lifetime, and your year of our Lord, okay? They just happen to be staring in that direction. And it's not got anything to do with you. It's just a coincidence, right? Okay. Plausible. But that's for a ghost. This kind of looked like the chick, the mom, the 19-year-old whatever mom chick. Maybe she was 20 at this time. I don't know. They were very young, right? It kind of looked like her. It didn't feel like her. But her hair was short, like a bob, you know, it was dark brown. And that's kind of what this looked like. I didn't hear no front door, no office door knob open. Didn't see the light that would have come through if it had opened for someone to be in the room at the fucking time, staring at me from around the corner of the fireplace. Homie, none of that happened. Didn't hear nothing. Didn't hear nobody coming. It just was a normal night of me laying in on the couch, and I'm looking, and this face peers around the fireplace at me, and it looked kind of like her, right? I do not think that it was her, like, just roaming around and randomly decides to come and, like, for some reason peer around the fireplace and look at me on the couch in the middle of the night. This lady had a baby, okay, who, it was quite a task, quite a chore, quite the feat to get that baby to go to sleep. And when it did go to sleep, you sure the fuck weren't playing around, jerking around, fucking trying to do anything to wake this baby up again. About 3 years later, after they were long gone, tell me how the fuck I saw what I believe was the same ghost again. And this time it was really fucking creepy. Gotta admit to you, that, you know, fireplace peeking around ghost, that one specifically, okay, was not one I was familiar with at any point in time in my childhood. Had never seen this specific one to my knowledge, like, before they lived with us. Could have been somebody that she brought with her, or it could have been her. Astral travel, staying on the fabric of space-time. I ain't sure, man. When I get around to telling the second time that I saw this ghost, right, we'll get into some of the theories and possibilities, but it's just like, dude. And also, man, when this chick lived with us, she had this suitcase. It was like a weird, like, blue suitcase, I think. A music box or a musical doll. Or something with a music box, dude. She said that that thing would start playing by itself. The box hadn't been moved. They hadn't been messing with it. It was under the bed. Really creepy shit. So, like I said, there were 2 doorways to the kitchen. And when they lived with us, their baby was, like, probably, like, 6 months old at this point. 6 to 9 months old. They had this, like, bouncy thing hanging in the doorway. So it was this thing that would, like, clip on to the door frame. And it was like this chair, like a bouncy chair. And that's what they called it. It was a bouncy chair. And so, dude, one, like, evening, okay, the baby is bouncing in his bouncy chair in the doorway, in the kitchen doorway. This hallway would end at the intersection of the hallway that you go down when you come in the side door. It would end there, and that was my bedroom right there. That was my bedroom door right there where this hallway ended. It had a history of some weird shit going down, okay? Back in the dating to the early 90s when we moved into it to begin with. Like, you would hear just weird fucking shit. One time my dad said he was working on one of the rooms down that hallway, and that he heard what sounded like a potato chip bag crinkling down the whole fucking length of the hallway, dude. So the same hallway, okay. Baby's bouncing in the doorway. I'm over by the stove, which was by the other doorway kitchen entrance, like here's the doorway to the kitchen, here's the stove, and then over here is the refrigerator, and then over here's the other doorway where the baby's bouncing. I remember exactly what I was making too. I was standing over there stirring spaghetti sauce. Everybody else was upstairs at that time. So they had left the baby for a span of, I'm going to say, probably like 20 minutes or something like that, because they would come back down eventually to check on this baby child, like, you know, and I wasn't no babysitter. They knew I wasn't going to be like doing a fucking thing as it pertains to the baby. Like, I wasn't picking the baby up. I wasn't doing none of that. So they knew not to be gone for too long, okay? But they were all upstairs. I'm stirring the spaghetti sauce. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a tall figure, looked like a thick, dense mist, fog, gray, misty, foggy looking, but unmistakably the figure of somebody, right? I see it pass by the doorway. And by the time that I looked straight on, all that I could see of it anymore was like this train that's on like a wedding dress or something. Like, it was like this train of like misty, thick, fog, dense, gray, what they call an apparition. So I see this and I just like, I walk to the center of the room, which is just a few steps. I walk to the center of the room away from the stove, and I kind of just stand there, and I'm just kind of looking at the doorway, you know, and the baby's bouncing in the doorway, right? I'm just kind of looking at the doorway like, okay, is somebody fucking with me? Are they trying to scare me? Are they going to be, if I go out this door of the kitchen and go look around the corner of the hall, or go look that way, is it going to be somebody there just ready to go, boo, ha, we got you? That's what I figured, right? Okay, so I'm standing there in the middle of the kitchen just thinking all this at fucking warp speed, dude. The baby stops bouncing. This baby, 6 months old, 9 months old, something like that, stops bouncing. He's looking at me, you know, generally. Stops bouncing. Gets this look on his face, man. Leans back in his bouncy chair and looks up and down in the direction of where this apparition walked to. Turns his head, this baby. And then he was just kind of like, it was just like this sense of like, huh. And then he turns around, starts bouncing again. And at this point, I'm like, okay, it's probably his mom or dad or something. He didn't look at whatever he saw like it was his mom or dad, but he didn't look scared or nothing. He was just more like, just, huh, you know? And I was like, okay, it's definitely his mom and dad, or his mom or his dad, or somebody is waiting around the hall for me to come out and investigate, and they're going to be like, boo, gotcha, or something, you know? So I go out that door of the kitchen, and I just like softly freaking approach this hallway because I'm freaked out. I'm gonna keep it real, you know. And even though I do suspect that somebody's gonna jump out at me and haha, whatever, I also kind of don't expect that. I expect I expect something, right? So I approach the hallway intersection, dude, and I turn and I look around the corner, and it's just the baby bouncing in the doorway. That's it. That's all that's going on. There's nobody standing anywhere waiting for me to jump out at me and scare me. There's none of that. There's nobody there. Okay. And about, I'm going to say 5 minutes later or so, everybody comes back downstairs. And I start asking, you know, did one of you just come down here like a couple minutes ago and pass by this hallway? And like, were you trying to like fuck with me, you know? And they were all like, no, like we never came back down until now. Like we've been up there the whole time. And they had been up there the whole time, and there wasn't anybody. Okay. Because who looks like a big cloud of gray mist anyway? Point is, I had a witness. The baby saw it too. No way he'd ever remember that. You know what I mean? Like, but he saw it too. There's no way he didn't. The way that he stopped and leaned back and looked up and down. So that was an apparition. And I've seen several other apparitions in my time. And I kind of feel like an apparition is sort of, what I will say is this. An apparition is definitely a stain on the fabric of space-time that I don't believe can interact. Okay? Maybe a ghost can interact. Are the ghosts and the entities the same thing? Maybe I will reach some conclusions about that as I go throughout this and talk about the experiences and tell the story. You know, maybe I will reach some kind of conclusion and decide ghosts and entities are the same thing. You know, but apparitions, man, that definitely a stain on the fabric of space-time. And I know it because of another experience that I had seeing an apparition, but not in my childhood home. This was in recent years that I saw an apparition that I know exactly what event that took place that it came from. Okay? In that room. Anyway, that's, like I said, some other place entirely, got nothing to do with my childhood home. But I will talk about that at some point, but it's going to be a long time from now because, you know, I've still got to keep going chronologically and there's just a lot between, just a lot. So I'm just hoping that I survive long enough to share this and do the work that I have to do before I release this, or in conjunction with releasing this. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens.